why care about AI? Like, is it just a passing phase? What's happening? 20 years from now, 50% of the current jobs will no longer exist because of artificial intelligence and what we call machine learning. So what will you be doing 20 years from now? And what will your family members be doing? Just to think about that for a second, if our jobs are going to be drastically different. The province of BC believes that 80% of its workers will need post-secondary training to keep up with the changes in AI. And so we have a big funding program here for digital training. That's a lot. That means it's going to affect all of us. So I wanted to try and give you like a landscape of what's going on. I call this the nutshell of changes in the economy. We have economic drivers going across the top, big picture in the middle, and on the bottom is our daily reality. So we have things like climate crisis, shortage of workers, and machine learning. All of these things are happening at the same time, and in a weird way, it's like the perfect storm. So the climate crisis, we're needing to drive for net zero and create a green economy, and that means there's going to be job losses as well as job gains. The shortage of workers is because our baby boom generation are going to retire, and so there will not be enough people to work. As a result, employers will more and more need to add artificial intelligence. Again, 80% of the jobs will need post-secondary training. And we've got a huge push for diversity, equity, and inclusion because that's where our worker bees are going to be. So we need to figure out where that's going to look and how that's going to look. Included in that will be what's a retirement age. Will probably be adjusted pretty drastically. So artificial intelligence, when it gets to sort of the next level, is called machine learning. And that's where the machine teaches itself. It no longer needs the humans to program it. So that means that our economy and the skill sets that we need to work so we can make some money to live are going to change. And so we're looking at what we call micro credentials. And so quick hit ways, less than a year, to keep up with things that are changing that will allow us to do things to keep working. It's in the government's best interest that we work so that we pay into the CPP, the retirement fund, so that all of the baby boomers have something to live on. Anyways, all of this is like happening all at once. And it gets us to the point that the people who like to make economic predictions are actually having a difficult time making predictions. So I like people to try and have as much information as is humanly possible so that they can adjust to the changes. So that means being ready to learn new things, being flexible, expecting change. No matter what, expect change, and understand that repetitive tasks will be replaced. So think about what it is that you do every day. And some of us go, oh, please, can't have a machine do that. You'd be surprised, actually. So instead, what we're aiming for is to think critically and creatively. So using your energies in a different way. You will find that, for example, if I wanted to become a graphic designer, I don't have the foundational skills to become a graphic designer. I may have an AI tool to help me, but I still can't produce decent designs. So there will be some balancing out between understanding foundational skills, using AI tools, and becoming experts. I'm hoping that people will embrace the new way that things are going to be, and that they'll make it work for them. So that is really my goal, is for you to understand how to use AI as a tool for work search, so that you're just as prepared as possible. Here's what we're going to cover today. What is AI, the pros and cons, how to use AI or prompts, using AI for career exploration, resume writing, cover letters, finding employers, networking, and lastly, for interviewing. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers. All right, so here we go. So three terms I want you to know, understand when we talk about what is AI. AI stands for artificial intelligence. So computer scientists have collected our data, so how we talk to each other when we're online, to build what's called a predictive text database. So when you're texting on the phone and it gives you a suggestion of what the next word is going to be, that's AI doing its thing. So they've been collecting data. not necessarily spying, but so that they can build these pretty amazing tools. When we hit machine learning, like I was saying, it's about when the computer can teach itself. The challenge with this is that when we have garbage data, we get garbage outputs. And so there's a lot of room for improvement, like a lot. So ChatGPT, you've probably heard about, there's been a big fuss. It's a form of generative AI. It generates its own answers based on our data. So it's generating potentially new content. The challenge is if the data is no good, then it's not necessarily generating great answers. So there are a variety of AI tools out there. These are the main ones. There will probably be more coming. I'm quite sure there's an open source one coming out of France, which means it will be free for everybody to use when it's open source. So right now, ChatGPT 3.5 is the free version most of us are using. You can pay if you want for. Microsoft Bing is called Copilot, and Google has just released their updated version of Gemini. All of those are generative AI tools. So pros and cons, whenever you use a tool, it can't do everything. It typically is fast. It completes repetitive tasks for us and allows humans to spend more time on creativity. That's the goal. It does allow employers to make more money because really it is kind of about the money. I like Scott Galloway's quote that someone who understands how to use AI is coming for your job. So I really want you to understand the landscape and so that you can make it work to your advantage. What you really need to understand about ChatGPT or any generative AIs is they are designed to please us. And so they will actually lie. They'll make an educated guess based on this piece of data and this piece of data to give you an answer, and they call it hallucinations. So you still need to verify whatever answers you're looking for to see where the source was, like who was saying what organization printed that information, put it out there. You really need to verify and double check. So one of the things that you can do when you're looking at your ChatGPT is think about the ABCs. So accuracy, which we just talked about, bias. So was the information created by white settlers? And is that the only avenue that is talked about in that data that they collected? And then C is for confidentiality. So you'll notice when you go into ChatGPT, if you go down onto the bottom left-hand side, you'll see your initials, it'll have your name, and there's 3 dots. When you click on those dots, it'll take you to settings. And so if you want, you can control your settings and let them have your data or not let you have their data. Recommend that you're thoughtful about what you want to put out there. Okay, so that's the basics there. So now I want to talk to you about prompts. So whenever you want to use something like ChatGPT, I really recommend that you ask the question 3 different ways. It will get you a little bit of different information, and I'll show you some examples as we go along. But if you say, I have a degree and I want a job in Vancouver, BC, what are my choices? And then you turn around and you say, I live in Vancouver, BC, what are my choices with a degree in? You'll get different answers. So you could literally use the same words, but just flip the order in the sentence. It's kind of fun to play with it. Probably the best piece of advice I got when I first started working with ChatGPT, which I share with you, is to think about it as a conversation. So you're having a conversation with an online like chatbot, basically, but a very complex one. And it remembers what the last question was. So you can do a bit of a deeper dive with each question, with each set of answers. And if it doesn't give you the answer that you want, then ask again, but in a slightly different way. Often I'll use the term be specific. Give me specific company names. We have some basic information on our UVic website for career services in our little section there about AI. So recommend that you take a look at that. So the very first time I got to play ChatGPT, this was the experiment. I'm like, really? Is it just that good? Like, really? So I had a young lad in my office who was doing a Bachelor of Software Engineering. He had worked at McDonald's for 5 years and he had volunteered with the Boy Scouts for 5 years. And so I said to ChatGPT, hey, this student has blah, 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 blah. What are their transferable skills? And then I said, based on these transferable skills, what are some career ideas that would be a good fit for these skills? And then with those career ideas, I said, hey, what companies hire people for those careers? And then I said, what are the entry-level positions called? And that gave some really, really clear information that allowed us to really dig down. And I have to say that when it was done, I had so much more energy. Instead of me coming up with the answers to all of these things and never feeling like I'm getting it all done within my 45-minute time slot, I helped this student move forward much faster. And so I appreciated that a lot. So here are the examples of the answers that the ChatGPT gave me. So it said that this young guy had communication skills, customer service skills, time management skills, teamwork, problem solving, leadership, adaptability, attention, initiative. So all of those things. And then it clearly explained the communication skills developed through interactions with customers at McDonald's and working in a team as a Boy Scout. And I appreciated that because in a resume, you can say you have communication skills, but you really need to provide the proof for an employer to believe you. And so here was ChatGPT helping you come up with the proof to understand how your skills will transfer. So then I said, what careers are a good fit for these transferable skills? And I got some suggestions. So customer support specialist, project manager, IT support, software developer, QA, etc. And I was like, okay, these are great suggestions. And it also explains why it made that suggestion. So utilizing communication and customer service skills to assist customers with product or service inquiries. So you can sort of see through that definition why customer support specialists might work. And for this student who kind of had these blinders on of I do software and I've worked at McDonald's, this was another way to think about himself and how he could use his skills to transfer to other areas. So then I said, what are the names of companies that hire IT support specialists in Victoria? So I chose one of those job titles, and this is what I got. So it starts out with categories, so tech companies, software development firms, telecommunications, etc. And then it also gave me some specific company names so that he could go look on Google and or company websites to see what he could see. It's sometimes too much information is just like this big sea that we're lost in. And so I call it chipping away at the iceberg. The goal is to get to the top of the iceberg with your perfect job. This helps bring in some of that. So you have some parameters. You have a list you can work your way through. Okay, so that's some examples of how to use AI prompts. It's basically about asking questions. Just keep asking until you get the information that you're looking for. And please remember about the hallucinations and verify everything that you take a look at. So let's move on to career exploration. So career exploration can include education, experiences, passions, and values. I like to use them all. So you can say to a ChatGPT, what careers would be a good fit for someone who loves these courses? So I love medieval studies. Perhaps you copy in and paste in a description of the course that you took. See what it'll pull up. You can also say what careers would be a good fit for someone with a degree in social work who no longer wants to work in that field. You can add qualifiers. What careers would be good for a person who likes these kinds of activities? So there's lots of ways that you can frame the questions. I'm going to keep showing you some other things to take a look at. You can ask it to help identify your transferable skills. So I did this job and I volunteered here. What are my transferable skills? And then just like we did with the boy that worked at McDonald's, we say, okay, what careers are a good fit for these transferable skills? Who hires for these careers? Who likes to hire for these careers? What careers would be a good fit to build on these experiences? So the same question really, but just a couple of different ways. So you can also do something like your passions. So I'm interested in blank and blank and blank. What careers would be a good fit? So I took this, took my son. He is a professional ballet dancer, but when he's not in the studio, he's a passionate outdoorsman. Can think of nothing better than spending the night in the woods, in a lean-to thing that he made. So I always think those are two very opposing, contrasting kinds of ideas of ways of being. And so that was one of the things I was putting into ChatGPT to see what it would come up with. And it actually came up with some really great ideas. And he was like, oh, these are actually okay ideas, Mom. So there you go. A stamp of approval from the 21-year-old. Identify careers attached to your passions and your degree. So sometimes it's fun to combine things into a sentence. It's a nice way also to just double check what else, or double check the information that you got in the first question. Values is another way you can go. I value an open work environment that's very flexible. What careers are a good fit for that? I need a career that allows me to work from 6 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon so I can pick up my kids. What careers are a good fit for that? Depends on where you're coming from, what you need. And then you can say, well, what transferable skills would I have from these values? So I really value family, and in my house, it's like anything homesteading, canning, knitting. What careers would be a good fit for that? You can also combine. So what careers combine these values and this degree, right? And it doesn't really matter what the background was or if they fit or don't fit. ChatGPT will put that together and help distill it. So another way that you can think about doing those combinations is something like this. Ask ChatGPT, I say it too many times, to generate 10 specific job titles that would be a good fit for me based on my favorite skills, and then list them, my interests, list 1 to 3, my values, and my degree. And you can have all of those just in a list. It doesn't have to be properly punctuated or anything. ChatGPT is really great that way. And it's good with like spelling mistakes, and you don't have to have things like questions in there. You can also choose any combination based on previous answers. Things get interesting at the crossroads. In my 20 plus years of doing this job, the part that I find the best is when people have unusual activities in their lives. It makes them unique, and it allows them to bring something to an employer that they probably don't have currently on their team. So I really encourage you not to be quiet about those things, but in fact, talk about them. I do this and I do that. And oh, look, I have these interesting skills because of it. I perhaps have different perspective than the other people on your team. And usually employers really appreciate that. So next steps is, what are some ways to build these careers? Where could I get started? How can I test out these careers to see if they're a good fit? So the biggest challenge I see for people when they're looking at doing a job search is getting going on a career. So building skills that are transferable. And understanding what experiences are going to help them build those skills so they can do what I call fill the bucket. As the bucket starts spilling over, then you know you're onto something. I really like to encourage people to have 3 buckets that they're filling, 3 different areas or skill sets that you're focusing in on. And I started that back like in the 90s, when we hit a crazy time in our economy. We've done a couple of them, because you never knew which skill set you were going to use to get what job. And if you're always thinking about developing 3, you've always got a job to flex into, which makes things just a little bit less calmer and less anxiety, when you feel like you've got a backup plan. Okay, so that's all of the career exploration tips and ideas. I want to move on now to resume writing and cover letters. So the first thing, you can see my big red X. You do not need to put your name and your contact information into any online database. But what you can do is copy and paste the rest of your resume. If you want, you can take information out of there if you want it to make it more generic and say, what's up with my resume? So there are a whole bunch of different ways that you can ask those questions. Here are some examples. So you can say, overall, is my structure good? Is the length okay? Is the format of my resume okay? You can, if you ask it a specific question, it will give you a specific answer. You can say, for this industry, is the content highlighting my strengths? Is there a way to reword the accomplishment statements? In the skills section, you can say, have I covered the keywords for entry-level jobs in this industry? Are the skills relevant to the job? Are there any skill gaps? And one of the things I like to do with that is then go talk to people in the industry and say, hey, here's my resume. Do you see that I have any skill gaps? What is that I need to learn on the in-between times? You can ask it about your work experience, phrasing the bullet points to emphasize your impact. You can also help it to quantify your achievements. So what are the results? We usually have a hard time coming up with what the results were. Like, we know we did things, but the results. And so ChatGPT can be very helpful with that. You can help it, or it can help you to tailor your resume to a specific job. It can also help you proofread, which you really can never get enough of when you do resume writing and cover letter writing. You can also, basically, it would help you to stand out and impress recruiters if you ask it for that help. So it will look at different information depending on the question that you ask. So for cover letters, you can give descriptions of what kind of tone you want the letter to have, what field of work, what position, as much detail as possible. Like really a lot of detail. And this is the part that I know I have a challenge with, understanding the tone of a cover letter. I have a girlfriend who's been writing grants, and she can go, oh, I want the tone to be blip, blip, blip. And she just has those words on the top of her head. I sit in amazement in watching her do that. So sometimes if you get stuck with the tone and or the prompts for the tone, it helps to ask people or ask ChatGPT what kind of tone would be appropriate for a cover letter for this industry. So you can paste in the job posting and you can paste in your resume and say, what's working, what's not working. You can ask those questions that were on the previous slide. Typically, however, ChatGPT is not very good at being persuasive. So I have a colleague at TRU who actually did a bit of research in this area, and his conclusion was that ChatGPT is not good at writing cover letters. For the co-op coordinators here at UVic, some of them have told me that they can tell right away when it was not the student writing the cover letter, because the language is very flowery. It's not the way that we typically talk. We have a fairly casual writing style now in our culture. And ChatGPT may be using old data where it was much fancier, more formal style. So again, if you can work the prompts, you might have a better chance. What I know that is when somebody else starts the writing for me and all I have to do is edit, it's much easier. And so from that perspective, I would encourage you to give it a try instead of being stuck and not moving forward on a job application. So I have a prediction to make that I think cover letters are going to just disappear. Already for our provincial government here, they prefer not to have cover letters. There's an occasional hiring manager who wants them, but the majority of them don't. I think because people will use ChatGPT to write the cover letters, it will make them less relevant, less important, less human potentially. And so we may just cease to use them. There'll be lots of changes in the world of human resources, that's for sure. So that was resumes and cover letters. Now I want to move on to finding employers and networking. So finding employers and networking. These are some of the exercises that I've done. You can say, what companies in BC hire a biomedical engineering graduate? And then I got 7 examples from the chat. And then I said, what companies in BC hire people with a biomedical degree? So a very slight variation in the language. I got those 7 companies, and then I got another 6. Actually, I think I got 8, but I couldn't put them all on the slide. So then I've got another great list to go off of. So one of the things ChatGPT then also did was said these companies span various sectors within the biomedical field, including, and so it gave me other search terms to use. So sometimes we say, well, I want a job in business, but business is very broad. So how can we narrow that down? How can we chip down the iceberg? And so really encourage you to read the whole thing that ChatGPT pulls out or produces, because there's often other little cues that you can use in there to help narrow down your search. Other words that you can try, other prompts. So another question I like to ask it when I'm looking for employers is what companies are similar to, and in this case, I just took the first one that was on my list, stem cell technologies. And I got another 5 companies that were not on the previous 2 lists. The ultimate goal when you're looking for work is to come up with 40 potential companies that would be a good fit for you to work with. So I call that my master list of companies. I get to know who they are, all the people that work for them, the projects they're working on, the changes they're making. And it's nice to have a list to go back to. So whenever you're looking for work, you're not reinventing the wheel. I really like the work by Steve Dalton and Jeremy Scheifling. So here's the background on that. Steve Dalton was a chemical engineer and then became a career coach. And he said, oh, we're really good at helping our people to write resumes and cover letters, but not so good at helping them to find work. And he's right. We kind of go, yep, out you go find a job. And we don't exactly specifically say hi. So he's attempted to do that with his book called The 2-Hour Job Search. So highly recommend. I'm sure he wonders why there's this big surge of people in Victoria buying that book. It's a bit of a dry read, but it's really logical and it's very easy to follow. And he's also follows the 40 list, the 40 companies on your list. So the next generation of that, next iteration of that is Jeremy Scheifling came along. He's buddies with Steve, and he said, hey, let's add AI to your 2-hour job search. And so there's a really great YouTube video called The 2-Hour Job Search Plus Networking in the Age of AI. So super long, but I highly encourage you to check it out. They'll show you a lot of the techniques that I was talking about. Jeremy Scheifling has a great newsletter called The Job Insiders. Again, very helpful for looking for work. Lots of great information, and you can easily find him on LinkedIn and then get the newsletter prompts. So in terms of networking, you can create a LinkedIn, or you can ask ChatGPT, to create a LinkedIn summary by adding my interests in blah, blah, blah. You can say, if this is my resume, can you create a summary for me? You can also say, will you generate a list of potential networking events or groups related to my career interests? You're more likely to get a job if someone refers you. So Steve Dalton will tell you from his research that 12 out of 13 jobs are obtained through a referral. Doesn't mean you have to be best friends. It doesn't mean you have to have worked with those people, but somehow or another, that person has your name and says, oh, you should take a look at their resume. So 12 out of 13. Only 1 out of 13 is found through Indeed. So worthwhile trying to figure out how to network. If you have a hard time with networking, why not get a little bit of help from ChatGPT Just make sure that it sounds like you. So you can say things like, given the resume information above, imagine I'm in a networking conversation and I want to give a concise and compelling introduction about myself. What can I say? You can literally ask ChatGPT like anything. You can say, provide a brief introduction I might use in a networking conversation while talking to somebody in blank industry. How could I, in a networking conversation, in one sentence, discuss my background as part of an introduction? So let it help you out with those awkward moments. Okay, so then we're going to move on to using AI for interviewing. I really like the tips that Austin Belkak puts out. He has cultivated.com newsletter. I find his stuff on LinkedIn. And so this is all from him. So what does the company look for when they're interviewing for, put in a job title? What are the 3 most important skills based on this job posting? So you can make sure that that's what you're focused on in your resume, in your cover letter, and in your interview. You know they're going to be looking to ask you questions about those 3 skills. What are the 10 most common interview questions companies ask in this field for this role? So get ChatGPT to help you prep for an interview. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. You can also ask it to research the interviewer. You can say, what are 3 of their career highlights, and link it to that interviewer's LinkedIn page, if you happen to know the LinkedIn page. Lots of times you can do things like, oh, the executive director of the company or the CEO, put that in and say, you know, what's important to this person? What do they value? What are 3 great questions I can ask the interviewer in this role for this company? You can also say something like, help me write a thank you letter with this tone for this position at this company. So once you start playing with this and fiddling with things, get creative and just keep asking so that hopefully you come up with something unique, so you're going to sound like you and not like other people who would do the exact same questions. So you can also access video interview tools. So Google has an interview tool called Warm Up. It's short and to the point, but for people who are nervous talking on a screen, it's a really great place to start. VMock is the tool that we happen to use at UVic, and it's got an elevator pitch. So you can, it'll help you practice your 30-second pitch. So the theory with the elevator pitch is you've just entered the elevator of a company at the same time that the CEO got into the elevator, and the CEO is taking a ride to the top. So you have about 30 seconds to say, hi, my name is, and whatever you want to tell them about your skills and how you'd really love to work for that company. So what are you going to say? It needs to be short and concise and engaging. And so it's the same thing often in the question of tell me about yourself, which most of us have had in an interview. VMock is good to help you just practice that, especially if you're not comfortable talking in an interview situation that's online. There's also some blogs that you can check out. So Review, HireVue, VidCruiter, and Spark Hire, and they have lots of great helpful tips. All righty, so we have whipped through that agenda. I'm sure there's lots of questions. Let me know in the chat. Heather's going to help field those over to me, and I'm going to stop sharing. Oh wait, no, I'll just leave it here in case that helps people remember. And then yeah. Okay, so.
Thanks, Karae. And I'm just looking in the chat to see if there's anything here. I'm not seeing anything on my side. I'm not sure, Jessica, if you can see anything different.
I love one comment, rest in peace, like RIP cover letters. That made me laugh. That's awesome. Anything not make sense? I tend to talk quickly. Um,
Oh, I
yeah,
see. I just
Either,
chat
either
or
the chat.
Q&A.
You can use either the chat or the Q&A. We can see both.
Okay, so one just come in here. As an employer, how would you use ChatGPT to find people looking for work?
Oh.
Kind of the flip side of that.
That
Good
is a
question,
really
Laura.
great question. I don't usually get that question. That would be fun to investigate. So if you said something like, I have a role, this is the job description, what degree would be the best fit? What transferable skills could I look for? And I would, yeah, that would be really fun to play with. It makes me, it reminds me very much of a job that my daughter was considering applying for. She was in first year university and she said, oh, I don't know if I'd be very good at this job. And I'm pretty sure she'd be okay with me giving these details. It was to work in a museum as an interpreter. And she was a theater major who was a French immersion graduate. Is Métis, and it was for a native place. And I thought she'd be like the perfect fit. And she said, well, it's asking for a business degree, and I don't have a business degree. And I said, I don't think that employer knows that somebody like you actually exists. And sure enough, when she went for the interview, the employer said to her, I had no idea that somebody like you existed. I was hiring people who worked in retail and sold shoes and wondering why things weren't working out very well. So kind of not a surprise, but equally, humans are pretty unique. So asking the ChatGPT for transferable skills to look for, potentially a degree to look for, experiences that might be valuable, maybe passions, attitudes, values that might come through. I don't know, that would be an interesting one as well. I wonder if you could flip it and say, this is my favorite employee, and these were the top 5 reasons why they were your favorite employee. And if you said, these are my top 5 things that were my favorite employee, where could I find this person? What kind of education would they have? What kind of experiences would they have? Things like that.
Thanks, Karae. And a couple more questions have just come in. So commonplace that AI is being used for employers for recruitment. And then what other tools besides ChatGPT are popular?
Okay, I don't know 100% for sure what tools employers are using for recruitment. If they're not using AI yet, they will be. Because it allows everybody to work faster or produce more work, not necessarily faster, but produce more work, get more things done. Hopefully we'll keep a little work-life balance in all of that. But honestly, if they're not right now, they will be soon enough. But I have read a couple articles about how there's a big fuss for ChatGPT and it's going to kind of grow for a bit and then it'll plateau, because the bottom line is companies can't afford to implement or to buy AI tools and implement them. And so it might be a nice idea, but the reality will set in and there'll be only so much. So if you're looking at being hired by a larger company, they're likely using AI. If you're looking being hired by a tech company, they're likely using AI, just as a couple guidelines. Okay, I think I see another question. Someone who is more senior in their career, 25 years in a leadership position and set in the industry, healthcare. What would be the best way to use AI to advance their career to the next level or to transfer to another industry with transferable skills? Okay, in terms of advancing, you would need to add some other information. So I would maybe something like, if you could get a hold of other job descriptions. So you could say, this is my current job description. I want to apply for this job description. What are my skill gaps? What am I missing? What are my transferable skills that would be most valuable? And then I would say, how can I fill those skill gaps? Where can I get that experience? See what it says. I would also ask humans those exact
Mhm.
same questions. I think you might find some really interesting pieces of information.
Yeah, and building off the micro credentialing that you touched on too, when I just look at the question on advancement, getting to that next level, perhaps exploring what those micro credentials are and perhaps using AI to find out what those could be, where they could access those.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, the digital skills training that our province in BC is paying for is available at continuing education post-secondaries. So like at universities and colleges, in their content departments or continuing studies, they'll have kind of different names. There are the digital courses in there are usually the ones that are being funded. Not all of them, but you can find it a little bit more quickly. Recommend that you take a look at Bow Valley College. The gentleman that's the president of the college is one of Canada's national leaders in micro-credentials and figuring out what that's going to look like. And so they're trying to build a great suite of tools that we can take, courses that we can take that are quick hits. You want to cost compare because there are some IT boot camps out there that are crazy expensive to give you a very narrow range of skills, which 5 years from now may not do you any good. But it may be enough to catapult you into a different direction as long as you go, okay, I'm in this new direction. I can't stop learning. I have to keep building and know that this is not where things are going to end. That's at the beginning I was saying you need to
Yeah,
always be
absolutely. And I will
prepared to change.
share too. I work for IBM and IBM has a free
Oh, okay. I think we were a little frozen there.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, good. And then I also just see another comment question here. So as you mentioned, 12 out of 13 jobs are obtained from a referral, and therefore networking is very important. In my experience, a lot of people are too busy for networking or maybe just not top of their list. How do you get to the people that would be helpful to your career search when they're largely unavailable?
That is the question. So one of the reasons I really like Steve Dalton is because he said a third of the people will not return your calls. They'll completely ignore you. Another third will string you along. And they'll sound nice, like, oh, sure, I'll help, but they won't actually be helpful. It's the last third that are going to be helpful. So really, you just need to keep plugging away until you get to that third. I figure those people that don't respond to my questions, me reaching out, are not people I want to work with anyways. I need that human touch when I work. And I need it to be surrounded by a great team, which I am here, which is pretty spectacular. So that's my suggestion, is just keep doing the networking thing until you find your people that are interested in helping you, which is going to take a bit. My husband would call that shots on goal, right? Take a lot of shots.
Yeah. All right, I'm just doing a final check here. I think that's all the questions. And Jessica, if you don't mind just bringing up the last slide there, we have a few events that we want to share with you that what's coming up. And if there are any more questions, by all means, put them in the chat and we'll address them before you wrap up.
So I just wanted to wrap up by thanking you guys for letting me tell people about AI and how it's going to mess with our lives, because I don't want to, I want people to have control over those situations as much as they possibly can so they can hit the ground running. And so one of the things that I have done as the owner of my company, Morgan Abbott Career Services, I have a presentation for parents. So on careers and education and AI. So all those things sort of wrapped up together, trying to help parents, again, get a little bit ahead of the curve and have some good, solid advice and understand what to help their kids focus in on. There's lots of parents who are like, oh, we've got coding. I said, great, AI is going to do coding. We won't have to even know how to do it in a short future. But things like having lots of different experiences and talking to your kids about transferable skills, or today the conversation was time management, those are like gold, huge gifts that you can give your kids. So if you're interested in a presentation at your school, please visit my website and reach out. And I will give the screen back to Heather.
Thanks so much, Karae. And I just see a comment in here. Oh, I think it was probably when I froze up about what IBM offers. So I was just mentioning it's called the IBM Skills Build. And essentially it's a free platform, and it's not just for tech, but if you're looking for some of those micro credentials, upskill, reskill opportunities, it's definitely worth doing a search there. I just was mentioning that, Karae said a lot of them, they're quite cost prohibitive, and this is being free. So just worthwhile to check out. All right. And just as we wrap up again, Karae, thank you so much. We are in early discussions on this whole AI topic, and I know there's lots to learn and lots to grow and lots to experience. And let's just remain cautiously optimistic about all the opportunities. And I do think, I personally want to embrace this technology by being mindful that, we are in early days and doing my own research and all of that. So look forward to kind of the 2.0 conversation. It would be great to have you back a year from now and see all the different changes that we're seeing in the landscape and where this conversation really evolves over the next year.
Yes, that exactly, Heather.
Mhm,
I would love to come
absolutely.
back. Yeah, it would be very cool.
Let's make that happen then. Absolutely. All right, and just a few just notes here that we have on the slide just for future events under Women in Leadership. So next speaker series webinar is February 28th. So that's online. Feel free to register online there. And then also the Victoria chapter is collaborating with a number of other women-led organizations here on the island under the banner of Women on the Rise. And we are doing an in-person event on Friday, March 8th, which is International Women's Day. Unfortunately, it sold out super fast. So we definitely want to bring more people in. So we have a wait list going. So if anyone wants to be added to that list, please reach out to me and we can add you to that. And then also our National Will Day. So our National Women in Leadership Day. We had our inaugural event last year. So this is year 2. And the Victoria chapter will be doing an in-person event on the last Wednesday in May, which is May 29th. And we will be doing it at Barrenjoey at the same location as we did last year. And if you're not in Victoria and you're in one of the other cities, provinces for women in leadership, just look for their website, because each of the 7 chapters are going to be doing their own individual events, and all of that information will be up on the website. Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your time, energy, input, questions, the conversation here. And as I mentioned earlier, this is being recorded and it will be shared out to everyone in the next day or so. Thanks so much and have a wonderful evening ahead, everyone.
You're welcome. Thanks for letting me hang out with you guys.
Thanks, Karae. Bye, everyone.